What if I told you that popcorn was good for you? Would you believe me? Or would you not? Either way, I have a popcorn dish that I have been saving for quite some time. It was used to hold Legos, but I decided to do something else with it. You might also be wondering, why in the world am I talking about popcorn, and what does it have to do with Hobbyworks? Well, you might be surprised, but you can do quite a lot with just this one dish. Boylei's art challenge for this month happened to be altering vehicles, and I was already planning on doing that, so that's what I did this month. To start things off, I needed to cut this thing in half. I did this using a plastic saw. Well, not plastic saw itself, just like a saw meant for plastic, which was actually more difficult than I had anticipated, so I decided to upgrade to the bigger saw. I didn't cut much of the plastic before I realized that this was a terrible idea, so I put this back aside and decided to stick with my smaller one. It was pretty difficult to get this thing in two, but after some time and patience, I was able to get the two pieces separated, and that was very satisfying. Then I took it outside and gave it a quick sanding. Then I marked out some holes where I was going to cut and implant some cardboard tubes to act as core strength, just like Studson says. Then I glued them in place to give it more strength. Then I marked out the spot where I needed to glue the leg mount, which was made of an ice cream sherbet lid. I then cut out a little square in the lid so I could mount the upper leg into it. The upper leg was made out of an off-cut piece of acrylic that I had. I did the same thing in the front. For the front leg, I wanted it to be a little bit different, so I had this little piece from a Star Wars toy, and this little piece from a miniature gumball machine that I could use. And to add some more detail, I have this piece that was used to hold some sort of liquid, and I have no idea what it was from. To support all the plastic pieces, I put a balsa wood disc on the top. To add some durability and strength to the super glue, I added some baking soda. This dries out the super glue in seconds, and it makes it stronger. This is a neat trick I learned from Craftastrophe. I next added some detail to the back legs, and you may have noticed this little thing that you get from ordering 6 pounds of spaghetti sauce from the grocery store. I also added this little piece from a robot toy that looked like somewhat of a compressor or something. I also added these little things that look like pipes, so that's what they are. They also hide the hideous hole that I made that I had no intention for, so bonus. And for the corrugated metal on the side, I used the plastic that you get from ordering the static grass applicator. You all know what I'm talking about. For the lower part of the leg, I had another piece of acrylic, just a little bit skinnier, but don't worry, we'll bulk it up later. But not this one, I didn't use acrylic. I used some wood strips that I had. I have no idea what kind of wood it is, but I thought it looked pretty cool, so that's why I did it. For the feet, I used some old Play-Doh containers that I rescued out of the trash, filled to the brim with hot glue. Except for the right foot. I did this using an orange juice container with a little cap inside to hold up the leg a little bit better. Topped off with this thing, and I have no idea what it is. A little extra detail won't hurt. Then I made some fake joints out of a Connect 4 checker, but only on the back legs. Then I wanted to make some hydraulics. I had this little cannon thing that looked pretty good, but I only want this piece, so time to get serious. I made the little hydraulic tube part out of a little metal rod. Then I just added random details all over the legs. Then I tipped the model upside down to detail that underbelly. And I used some very random stuff. Like these pieces from a Star Wars toy, this piece from a Toy Ninja Sword, these pieces from an RC robot toy, another 3D printed part, a piece of a Star Wars foam bullet holder, and a chair. I wanted to have a rack on the front, so I repurposed an old roof rack from a toy car, and to make it actual rack, I used some of this mesh, and I have no idea what it was used for. And then put it on the front of the mech. This will be used to hold some useful junk later on. I then took that lid that we threw aside earlier, cut off the tip of it, and then put it on the front. To build up the floor, I took some cardboard and some more of that cardboard tube to hold it up so it wouldn't sink in. Then I made some fenders out of a soap pod container, some metal plating, and then I went crazy with the junk. I had a bunch of these things and I don't really know what they are, but I glued a bunch of them together to look like one of those Hoth shield generators. I put another rack in the back of the mech because I really like how it looks. I wanted to have a wooden deck on the top, so I glued down a bunch of balsa wood strips textured with a wire brush to make it look like old wood. I also wanted a metal house on the top, so I used one of those tape rolls that you get from using tape, caked with plastic from an ice cream sherbet container. I made a smokestack off camera using a couple different bits like some tape rolls, a whipped cream cap, and a Then it was time to make a roof. I did this by overlaying little pieces of plastic to sell the idea that this is overlaying metal sheets of metal and not plastic. For the cockpit area, I had this grilled piece from a Star Wars toy that I felt like fit the vibe. And then for the countertop space, I had this fake countertop made out of plastic. And then with some more little bits, I made the cockpit more look like a cockpit. I also added some cannons on the deck, some neat gear things that serve some kind of a purpose, a mast, because I really like the looks of masts, another mast because I just can't get enough of them. Some sort of fuel tank with a big pipe strapped to it, and a boiler. Then I drilled some holes for some little poles to sit in, and they would be holding up a little canopy so it'd keep the rain off the cockpit. So now people can drive for hours through the mountains in the rain without getting wet. The mast that I had on there was a little bit too short, so I made it a little bit higher with some more of that metal pole. And then I added some barrels for their oatmeal, an antenna for the top of the mast, and a little crane to go on the side, made out of some dowels, some balsa wood, a little metal shaft, and another broth cap. And I will add a chain to this later, but not now. But other than that, the construction is done. There's just one more thing I need to do. Add the famous rhinestone rivets. Whoops. Hang on 1 minute. Oh hey, it worked. Then I took the model outside and gave it a coat of black primer with a light spray of gray to give it sort of a zenithal highlight. But I ran out of gray primer in the process, so I didn't have enough, and it didn't work as well. Now I needed to start the painting, but to do this, I needed to give it a pre-shade with my airbrush. I usually keep it right around here in this old box. Wait. Okay, so I had an airbrush, but it's not here anymore. Wonder what could usually keep it in that box. I guess that, wait. Oh. What am I gonna do with you? I think I'll actually use it later. Please enjoy the crazy music painting montage as we start with our first color, copper. Next, a gold highlight on all of the copper areas. Next, a silver dry brush. Then paint the legs with a gunmetal, and this area with a gunmetal. And then paint the wood with a color that you forgot. And then dry brush it with a buff that you cannot stop using. Oh, and also paint the 4 different masks that you have with that color you forgot, and dry brush it with that same buff. And then we paint the cannons, the smokestack, and the cockpit with a dark black. And then we try a new technique, is where you take your expensive sponge and then rip it apart, and then dip it in silver paint that will not very likely come off, and then splotch it all over your diorama or model, in which case could ruin it very bad. But this time it didn't, and it actually looked like pretty convincing dents. I sound too negative, don't I?
Yeah.
Then paint more gunmetal on those tubes, because they need to look like metal, even though they were metal. And then use some gunmetal blue, because I've been looking for an excuse to use this paint. And paint those fenders bronze, because everyone loves a good bronze. And then dry brush all the black areas with a silver to bring out those highlights. And I've gotten more than one comment saying that this piece looks like a macaroni. So to honor that, I decided to paint it a goldish yellow. But unfortunately, my paint wasn't behaving very well, so I decided to just let it be for now and paint it with just a regular gold later. And then I just decided to paint all the rest of the junk as well. I then painted those oatmeal barrels, or I think they hold oatmeal. I'm actually not sure. What do you think they should hold in there? Maybe just food or rations, maybe some fuel? I don't know. Maybe we'll just stick with oatmeal. But you let me know. What do you think? I then painted those last little bronze and brass bits, and then hey, we're done. Now we're on to my favorite part of all the model making, the weathering. It was time to make a rust paste. I did this by using some baking soda, some paint, some tacky glue, and a little bit of water. I made it a little bit darker by adding some darker paint, obviously, and it looked much better. I didn't really like how it looked, so we'll come back to it later. And now, please enjoy these 3 peaceful minutes without any talking whatsoever, and enjoy the rest of the setup. Now we have one final thing to do, the airbrushing. I think my booth is too small. You know what? We'll do it without a booth. For starts, we need to grab our airbrush, which is right here. Then put some colors in it, which is going to be flat brown, and then the buff I can't stop using. I wasn't doing much for this first time around, so I put in the buff in brown and thinned it down and then put it on the canopy. And then when I was done with that, I put some white in there and then added a dust layer on top of everything. After I had thoroughly dusted everything, the model was finished. that is it for this video. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed it as much as I did making it. Extra special thanks to Boylei for doing an art challenge again. I had a lot of fun with this one. Other than that, have a great rest of your week. I'll see you on the next one, everybody.